Whispers in the group chat are saying that Claressa Shields just accepted the flimsiest, saddest, most microscopic dose of affection from a man who is still legally married to another woman. And sweetheart, if you thought the audacity meter could not possibly climb another inch, wait until you catch what Claressa Shields did next, because Claressa Shields did not just settle for the bare minimum. Claressa Shields decided to broadcast the bare minimum, decorate the bare minimum, and then repurpose an entire love song that Papoose wrote for his wife Remy Ma and try to slap it on top of her situationship with Papoose like a bootleg brand sticker. That is not a headline, sugar. That is a public service announcement. And today the announcement is that Claressa Shields has officially entered her delusion era, and Papoose is standing right there letting it happen. So sit down, silence your phone, and let me walk you through the mess that Claressa Shields, Papoose, and the ghost of Remy Ma's blueprint have manufactured this week. Because this one is layered, this one is loud, and this one is going to leave you with your hand over your mouth. Now listen close, sugar, because context is everything, and the context here is dripping. Claressa Shields is a boxer. Claressa Shields is supposed to be training. Claressa Shields has a real fight on the calendar against a real opponent. And yet Claressa Shields cannot seem to pry herself away from the group chat, the comment section, and the stitched replies. Instead of putting in rounds, Claressa Shields is putting in posts. Instead of throwing hands in the gym, Claressa Shields is throwing subtweets on the timeline. And a lot of you called this from day one, because the second Claressa Shields decided to publicly parade around a married man and try to sell it to the culture as some kind of luxurious black love story, we all knew where this road ended. It ended exactly where every mistress fairy tale ends. It ended in the comment section, defending crumbs, arguing with strangers, and repackaging another woman's legacy as your own. Peep this real quick, because this is where the whole situation trips over itself. Claressa Shields sat down for a very public interview, and the interviewer, an absolute veteran in her craft, asked Claressa Shields the exact question everyone at home was already asking their television. How long is Claressa Shields going to entertain a married man? How long is Claressa Shields going to keep pushing this into our faces? And instead of answering with grace, instead of pivoting with humor, instead of doing what a seasoned public figure would do, Claressa Shields imploded. Claressa Shields lost her composure on camera. Claressa Shields tried to shut down the question, tried to lecture the veteran, and tried to walk out of the moment holding her chin up like she had just delivered a knockout blow, when in reality the entire internet had already scored the round against her. You gotta be honest with yourself, because that was the moment the mask cracked. That was the moment Claressa Shields showed the world exactly how thin the confidence really is. And come to find out, that was only the appetizer. Because after the interview aired, Claressa Shields did what every guilty party does. Claressa Shields ran to the comment section. Claressa Shields ran to her Instagram stories. Claressa Shields ran to every corner of the internet trying to spin the narrative, trying to correct the record, trying to insist that Papoose is separated, insisting that Papoose filed for divorce, insisting that Papoose is basically single, and sweetheart, none of that is holding up. Because Papoose himself has not said any of that publicly. Remy Ma has not said any of that publicly. There is no divorce decree circulating. There is no signed judgment. There is no legal ribbon tied on this bow. There is a woman with a very loud voice trying to manifest a legal status that does not exist yet. Whispers in the group chat are saying that Claressa Shields is doing everything but the actual thing that would give her situation any legitimacy, which would be waiting for Papoose to legally close the chapter with his wife. And that is where the audacity metastasizes. Because Claressa Shields is not just impatient, Claressa Shields is inventive. Claressa Shields decided that if the paperwork does not exist, she will simply invent the emotional paperwork. And how did Claressa Shields do that? By pulling out a song, an actual recorded record, that Papoose wrote and released while he was in blissful matrimony with Remy Ma, and using that song as the soundtrack to her situation. Sit with that for a second. Marinate in that. Claressa Shields borrowed the anthem of another woman's marriage and tried to remix it into the theme song of her side chapter. Real talk, though, that has to be one of the most tone-deaf digital moves I have seen a public figure make in months. Because that record was not written in a vacuum. That record was written in a household. That record was written for a wife. That record has fingerprints on it. It has a decade of receipts inside its lyrics. And when Claressa Shields decided to press play on that song and paste it under her own little montage, Claressa Shields did not romanticize herself. Claressa Shields quoted somebody else's marriage in the caption of her own affair. Sweetheart, that is a whole other planet of embarrassing. Now let me walk you through what actually got delivered to Claressa Shields, because the visual evidence is almost more damaging than the audio. Claressa Shields received flowers. Claressa Shields did not receive an apology. Claressa Shields did not receive a divorce paperwork envelope. Claressa Shields did not receive an engagement ring. Claressa Shields did not receive a house key. Claressa Shields received flowers. And the flowers came with a card. And the card said, and I want you to imagine reading this out loud. To the love of my life, from the love of your life. Thanks for being you, love always, Papoose. That is the ceiling. That is the sky. That is the entire skyline of what Papoose is offering Claressa Shields. A card with a caption that reads like a birthday text from a distant relative. Wait until you catch this, because Remy Ma already told the internet what to make of this exact scenario. Back when Remy Ma and Claressa Shields were exchanging shots in the public arena, Remy Ma delivered one of the most surgical shutdowns of the whole feud. Remy Ma looked into the camera and told Claressa Shields to have her boyfriend buy her some flowers. Not a house. Not a proposal. Not a wedding. Flowers. Remy Ma predicted the entire ceiling of this arrangement in a single sentence. And now, months later, Claressa Shields walks into the room holding those exact flowers like she just won a trophy. Sis, you did not receive a gift. You received a prophecy fulfilled. But the flowers are not even the worst part. The song is not even the worst part. The worst part is the caption Claressa Shields chose to attach to it all, because Claressa Shields decided to declare that her and her man cannot be mimicked. Mimicked. Sweetheart, mimicked is exactly what this is. Because every single move Claressa Shields is making right now was already choreographed by Remy Ma and Papoose more than a decade ago. The song was Remy Ma's. The love language was Remy Ma's. The public devotion was Remy Ma's. The husband was, and still legally is, Remy Ma's. Everything about this situation is a bootleg dub of an original recording, and Claressa Shields wants us to believe she is holding a first pressing. Nobody with functioning eyeballs is falling for that. Now let me pull the actual lyrics of this song apart, because it is important that you understand exactly what Claressa Shields is trying to claim as her own. This record dropped years ago, in a period where Papoose and Remy Ma were still very publicly a united marital front. In the lyrics, Papoose sings about a shared history of trouble and triumph, about climbing every mountain together, about a decade of loyalty, trust, faithfulness, dedication, honesty, and discipline. He says, we are a decade in. A decade. Claressa Shields, unless you have been running a parallel decade nobody knew about, that lyric was not written about you. That lyric could not possibly be about you. That lyric belongs to a wife who spent literal years earning the language it contains. The song keeps going. Papoose describes a woman who reads books in bed on a tablet, who stocks the fridge, who packs the pantry, who moves with generous habits. Now let us do a reality audit. Claressa Shields, when was the last time you were curled up in bed with a tablet reading a novel while your man drifted off? When was the last time you filled the fridge? When was the last time you were reported to be a woman of quiet, generous domestic habits? Because the paper trail of Claressa Shields is the opposite. The paper trail of Claressa Shields is fights, feuds, interviews, comment wars, and takeout. The song is not a mirror of Claressa Shields. The song is a mirror of Remy Ma, and Claressa Shields is trying to stand in front of it and pretend her reflection looks the same. There is another lyric where Papoose declares that if any man disrespects his woman, he will handle it personally. Come to find out, that line only seems to apply to the marriage it was written about. Because in the public timeline, Claressa Shields has been dragged, mocked, disrespected, and picked apart. And where has Papoose been? Papoose has been in his own comment section posting freestyles. Papoose has been begging the internet to stream his new music. Papoose has been rocking sunglasses and selfies while the woman he is publicly linked to gets torn apart on every timeline. That is not protection. That is not defense. That is the actions of a man who is emotionally checked out of the situation Claressa Shields is drowning in. A lot of you called this from day one, and now the receipts are piling on top of each other so fast you cannot even file them. Because on top of everything, Claressa Shields is now tagging Papoose in posts trying to force public engagement, and Papoose is not biting. Papoose is not liking. Papoose is not resharing. Papoose is not co-signing. Papoose is posting himself. Papoose is promoting his upcoming fight card. Papoose is promoting his music catalog. Papoose is essentially treating Claressa Shields like an unpaid publicist for a marketing quarter he wants to milk, and Claressa Shields is showing up to work every single day for free. Peep this real quick, because it gets worse. Claressa Shields did not stop at borrowing the song and posting the flowers. Claressa Shields went to her Instagram stories to attack the interviewer who asked the original question. Claressa Shields called the question corny. Claressa Shields tried to belittle the platform. Claressa Shields tried to nudge her fan base into targeting a veteran radio personality who has been in this industry longer than most of the guests she has ever interviewed. Sweetheart, that is a professional death wish. That is career sabotage in slow motion. Because the industry does not forget when you disrespect its veterans. The industry does not forget when you try to weaponize your fan base against journalists. The industry keeps receipts. And I want to note something, because this is important. The morning show that ran the interview is not some fringe channel. It is a tentpole platform. The host who asked the question is not some rookie. She is a heavyweight who has been sitting across from culture-defining names for 2 decades. Charlemagne himself, sitting right next to her during that interview, tried to smooth the edges after the moment. But even Charlemagne quietly signaled that Claressa Shields had made a mistake. Charlemagne referenced her decades of experience, referenced her time next to Wendy Williams, referenced her as a beast in her craft. That was Charlemagne diplomatically telling Claressa Shields, in front of a live audience, that she just picked a fight she cannot win. Now listen close, sugar, because here is where the game gets extra dangerous for Claressa Shields. Claressa Shields is playing this game in Atlanta. Claressa Shields is playing this game in the same industry that just chewed her up in the Zeus Network arc, in the Baddies feud, in the Chris Cyborg exchanges. Claressa Shields does not seem to understand that when you body slam your own reputation over and over again in front of the same audience, that audience stops being your audience. That audience becomes your case file. Every fight, every feud, every post is being cataloged in real time, and every catalog entry makes the next entry harder to escape. Real talk, though, the most tragic part of all this is not even the disrespect toward the interviewer. The most tragic part is the internal narrative Claressa Shields seems to be selling to herself. Because Claressa Shields appears to genuinely believe that she is winning. Claressa Shields appears to genuinely believe that she has captured a prize. Claressa Shields appears to genuinely believe that being publicly linked to Papoose is an upgrade. Sweetheart, Papoose is not a prize. Papoose is a man who cannot even bring himself to finalize the paperwork on the last chapter of his life. And yet Claressa Shields is decorating her feed like she just closed on a mansion. Wait until you catch this. There is a specific detail in the lyric of the song Claressa Shields keeps replaying that made my jaw hit the floor. Papoose talks about being with a woman who has, and I quote loosely, faithfulness, trust, discipline, celebration, and modesty. Now let us do a public receipts check on Claressa Shields on those specific virtues. Faithfulness, from a woman actively involved with a legally married man. Trust, in a public spectacle where nobody involved seems to trust anyone else. Discipline, from a fighter who is skipping training to argue in comment sections. Modesty, from a woman doing Instagram story wars in high definition. Every single virtue in that song is a virtue that Claressa Shields is currently not performing. It is like reading somebody else's diary and highlighting the entries you wish were yours. Come to find out, this is not even the first time Claressa Shields has referenced this exact record. Claressa Shields has repurposed this song more than once. This is a pattern. This is not a slip. This is not a passing moment of poor taste. This is a repeated attempt to plant her flag in a piece of art that was never planted for her. Every time Claressa Shields presses play on that song, Claressa Shields is inviting an inevitable comparison, and the comparison keeps landing in the same place. Claressa Shields is not the woman in the song. Claressa Shields is the woman standing outside the window humming along, hoping somebody inside the house cannot hear the difference. Sweetheart, we have to talk about Remy Ma for a moment, because none of this operation works without acknowledging that Remy Ma is the entire blueprint. Remy Ma is the original public partner. Remy Ma is the original loved out loud wife. Remy Ma is the original woman who received these songs, received these declarations, received these devotions in real time when they were fresh and untraceable. Remy Ma is not an ex. Remy Ma is still legally the wife. And every move Claressa Shields is making right now is a photocopy of an original that Remy Ma has never taken off the wall. When Claressa Shields posts, Remy Ma has already posted. When Claressa Shields dances, Remy Ma has already danced. When Claressa Shields captions, Remy Ma has already captioned. This is not a comeback story for Claressa Shields. This is a tribute concert to Remy Ma, and Claressa Shields is the cover band nobody asked to book. Whispers in the group chat are saying that even Papoose knows this. Even Papoose, in his quiet non-response, in his refusal to co-sign the campaign Claressa Shields is running for herself, is telegraphing to the world that Remy Ma is still the reference point in his life. He has not filed a public declaration of new love. He has not posted Claressa Shields as his woman with any of the language the song contains. He has not said, "This is the new decade. This is the new mountain. This is the new chapter." He has said, "Buy my music." He has said, "Come to my show." He has said, "Look at my sunglasses." That is not a man in love. That is a man on a promotional tour, and Claressa Shields is unpaid promotion. Now let me pull back for a second and paint the wider picture. Because this story is not just about one woman making one bad post. This story is a case study in what happens when a public figure decides that clout is a substitute for legitimacy. Claressa Shields is trying to shortcut her way into a relationship status she has not earned. Claressa Shields is trying to fast-forward the paperwork, fast-forward the language, fast-forward the devotion. Claressa Shields is trying to skip the entire decade the song describes and land directly at the payoff. That is not how this works. That is not how any of this works. You cannot inherit somebody else's decade. You cannot borrow somebody else's marriage vocabulary. You cannot press play on somebody else's love song and expect the algorithm to auto-complete a wedding. Peep this, because the algorithm of public perception is more brutal than any social media algorithm. The public sees the flowers. The public sees the caption. The public sees the recycled song. The public does the math. And the math keeps arriving at the same answer. Claressa Shields is getting the bare minimum. Claressa Shields is being sold a discounted version of a devotion that belonged to somebody else. Claressa Shields is being handed a used script and told to perform it like a debut. And Claressa Shields, instead of pushing back, is memorizing the lines and asking for a curtain call. Either way you slice it, this is going to end in one of two directions, and neither of them favors Claressa Shields. Direction 1. Papoose eventually finalizes the paperwork with Remy Ma, and even then, everything Claressa Shields inherits is a downgraded, second-hand version of a life that was built with somebody else's fingerprints on it. Direction 2. Papoose never finalizes anything, and Claressa Shields spends the next several years cosplaying a partnership that will never legally exist, aging in public, arguing with strangers, and pressing play on that same song every anniversary that is not actually an anniversary. Neither direction is a fairy tale. Both directions end with Claressa Shields still standing outside the house Remy Ma built. Come to find out, this saga has an even messier layer, because Claressa Shields has a fight on the calendar. A real fight. A real training camp. A real opponent who is not distracted by Instagram wars. And while Claressa Shields is out here defending flowers and remixing love songs, her opponent is putting in rounds, drilling combinations, and studying tape. This is the part of the story the culture is going to look back on. Because the ring does not care about your comment section. The ring does not care about your captions. The ring does not care whose song you played on your story. The ring cares about conditioning, discipline, and focus. And if Claressa Shields keeps burning her focus on this offering theater, the scoreboard is going to reflect it in the most public way possible. Real talk. Though, this is the exact moment where I have to ask you. And I mean actually ask you, because I want to see your red on this in the comments. Do you think Claressa Shields genuinely believes that she has won something here? Or do you think Claressa Shields knows exactly how thin this arrangement is and is doubling down out of pride? Because there are two very different diagnoses for what we are watching. Diagnosis 1. Claressa Shields is a woman in emotional denial who has convinced herself the songs and the flowers add up to something they do not. Diagnosis 2. Claressa Shields is a woman fully aware of the arrangement, playing the long game, and hoping public visibility will pressure the paperwork into moving. Both diagnoses lead to the same place, but the psychology is very different, and I want to hear which one you're voting for. Sweetheart, I have to say this next part gently, because I am not in the business of kicking a woman while she is down. But I am in the business of naming what I see, and what I see is a woman using her platform, her body of work, and her public spotlight to advocate for a version of her own life that is not supported by the facts. Claressa Shields is a champion in her craft. Claressa Shields has earned respect in that ring. Claressa Shields does not need to import somebody else's love story to prove her worth. And that is what makes this arc so frustrating. Because Claressa Shields is settling. Claressa Shields is settling for a diluted version of what she could demand outright. Wait until you catch this final wrinkle, because there is something about the caption war that has not been discussed enough. When Claressa Shields wrote that her and her man cannot be mimicked, Claressa Shields inadvertently confessed the entire premise of her problem. Because the word mimicked is a word that only appears in a mind that is already anxious about being compared. You do not defend yourself against a comparison nobody is making. You only defend yourself against a comparison you feel gaining traction. Claressa Shields told on herself in that single word. Claressa Shields is fully aware that Remy Ma is the ghost in every room, in every post, in every song, in every flower, and Claressa Shields is trying to shout the ghost down by naming it before anybody else can. The energy Claressa Shields is putting into these posts is the energy of a woman who knows the ground under her feet is unstable. Confident partnerships do not need to broadcast themselves. Confident partnerships do not need to remix somebody else's anthem. Confident partnerships do not need to fight with journalists. Confident partnerships breathe. Confident partnerships live. Confident partnerships do not perform. And everything about Claressa Shields right now is a performance, staged in high definition, for an audience that is not clapping. Now listen close, sugar, because I want to close on the part of this story that actually matters. Because underneath all the drama, underneath the mistress framing, underneath the flowers and the songs and the caption wars, there is a very human tragedy sitting in the middle of all this. There is a woman legally attached to a man she may or may not still love. There is a woman publicly attached to a man she may or may not be able to keep. And there is a man in the middle who has apparently decided that the most valuable thing about this entire situation is the marketing bump for his upcoming fight card and his new music. Nobody in this triangle is winning. Everybody in this triangle is negotiating with a version of themselves that has not quite arrived yet. And that, my sweet audience, is the real story. Not that Claressa Shields is a mistress. Not that Papoose is a promoter. Not that Remy Ma is the blueprint. But that all three of them are performing for a public that has already made up its mind. The audience already voted. The comment section already decided. The timeline already scored the round. And every additional post Claressa Shields drops, every additional song she recycles, every additional flower she photographs, is another public confirmation of a verdict that has already been rendered. The verdict is that Claressa Shields has not built anything new. Claressa Shields has redecorated somebody else's house and is inviting the neighborhood over for a tour. Either way you slice it, this saga is not over. There will be more posts. There will be more remixed songs. There will be more captions. There will be more radio segments. There will be more comment section wars. Because Claressa Shields, based on every pattern of behavior visible right now, is not the type to quietly walk away from a spotlight even when the spotlight is scorching her. Claressa Shields is going to keep pressing play. Claressa Shields is going to keep tagging. Claressa Shields is going to keep responding to strangers online. And every time Claressa Shields does that, another chunk of her actual legacy, the ring legacy, the boxing legacy, the world champion legacy, gets sanded away in exchange for gossip clout. Sweetheart, that is the tragedy. Claressa Shields is not being humbled by the world. Claressa Shields is humbling herself in front of the world. And the world is doing what the world always does. The world is watching. The world is recording. The world is putting every moment in a folder marked receipts. And one day, when this arc finally collapses, that folder is going to be opened, and every post, every song, every flower, every caption, every comment section meltdown will be replayed in slow motion. And Claressa Shields is going to have to sit with the archive of a chapter she volunteered to write in permanent ink. Now let me back up for a second and unpack the timing of all of this, because timing is the one thing nobody is stopping to examine, and timing is the loudest character in the entire story. Claressa Shields did not decide to weaponize this song in a random moment. Claressa Shields did not decide to post those flowers on some quiet Tuesday afternoon. Claressa Shields dropped every single one of these posts in the exact same window she was being publicly grilled for entertaining a married man. That is not coincidence. That is not clumsy PR. That is a woman visibly trying to author a counter-narrative on the fly, and the counter-narrative is falling apart in real time because the source material she is using was authored by another woman a decade before Claressa Shields ever entered the picture. When Claressa Shields posts, Claressa Shields is not writing a chapter. Claressa Shields is quoting a book that already has a printed dedication page, and the dedication page says Remy Ma. Whispers in the group chat are also saying that the people around Claressa Shields are not helping her. Nobody in her inner circle appears to be pulling her aside and telling her to step away from the phone. Nobody appears to be saying, "Sister, we need to lock in on the training camp and let this online spectacle die." And that in itself is a story. Because when your team goes quiet during your loudest public breakdown, it is not because they respect you. It is because they either fear you, are cashing checks from you, or are quietly enjoying the show. That silence around Claressa Shields is not loyalty. That silence is a red flag with a spotlight on it. And anybody with a functioning brain in her circle should be doing exactly the opposite of what is happening right now. Come to find out, this is also not the first time a public figure has attempted the exact operation Claressa Shields is running. History is littered with women who tried to inherit a legacy by proximity, and history has a very consistent verdict on how it ends. The blueprint that Remy Ma built with Papoose is not a blueprint that transfers. That blueprint was welded together by shared decades, shared albums, shared court dates, shared children, shared reinvention, and shared silence during the hard chapters. That blueprint cannot be photocopied by playing the same song and posting the same style of flowers. That blueprint is not a plug-and-play template. That blueprint is a fingerprint, and fingerprints do not duplicate, and Claressa Shields is out here pressing her hand on the same glass Remy Ma already pressed and expecting a different print to appear. Sweetheart, And this is where the situation stops being funny and starts being genuinely sad. Because underneath the sarcasm, underneath the memes, underneath the internet dragging, Claressa Shields is a woman who has spent her entire adult life being underestimated inside the sport of boxing. Claressa Shields fought for every ounce of respect she has ever earned inside a ring. Claressa Shields broke doors that were nailed shut long before she ever laced up. And Claressa Shields is now watching all of that credibility get spent, one recycled song at a time, on a man who is not spending anything comparable in return. That is not a fair exchange. That is not even a bad trade. That is a robbery in slow motion, and Claressa Shields is standing there holding the door open for the thief. Real talk. Though, we also have to name what Papoose is doing here, because Papoose is not an innocent bystander. Papoose is not a passive character being pulled into a spectacle he did not create. Papoose knows exactly what is happening. Papoose sees every post. Papoose reads every caption. Papoose watches every interview. And Papoose has made a very deliberate choice to remain publicly ambiguous, because public ambiguity is the currency Papoose is using to extract free promotion, free relevancy, and free press. Papoose is running a promotional campaign disguised as a mystery. Papoose is not silent because he is respectful. Papoose is silent because silence keeps the story alive, and a live story keeps him relevant. That is the actual mechanic under the hood, and Claressa Shields is the one paying the electricity bill. Wait until you catch this, because there is a moment inside all of this that reveals the entire truth. When Claressa Shields posted that song, Papoose did not repost. Papoose did not stitch. Papoose did not caption. Papoose did not comment. Papoose did not even like it publicly. Think about that. A man who wrote a song about a woman, and when a second woman replays that song in his honor, he cannot even bring himself to hit the like button. That is not restraint. That is not privacy. That is a signal. That is a man telling the world, without saying a single word, that the song still belongs to the original recipient. And the current situation is a footnote he will address on his own timeline, and probably never at all in the language Claressa Shields is hoping for. A lot of you called this from day one, and I need to give the audience their flowers too, because the audience was 10 steps ahead of every headline. From the moment this arc began, the comment sections were already predicting exactly this ending. The comment section said Claressa Shields would end up defending crumbs. The comment section said Claressa Shields would end up remixing Remy Ma's Blueprint. The comment section said Claressa Shields would end up broadcasting a version of a partnership that never fully existed. And the comment sections were right. They were right in July. They were right in the spring. They were right at the very beginning. And that is the meta-story here, that the audience of black gossip culture is smarter, sharper, and more forensic than the celebrities they cover, and Claressa Shields keeps forgetting that the audience is not her enemy. The audience is her jury, and the jury has already deliberated. Either way you slice it, the next 90 days of this story are going to be the most decisive. Because within the next 90 days, Claressa Shields will step into a ring against a legitimate opponent. Within the next 90 days, Papoose will release another single or another promotional push. Within the next 90 days, Remy Ma will either speak, will either subtly signal, or will maintain the pointed silence that is somehow louder than anything else in the story. And when those three timelines collide, the entire arc reaches a natural pressure point, and something breaks. Either Claressa Shields walks into that ring distracted, and the scoreboard reflects it, or Claressa Shields walks in and delivers a career-defining performance that briefly quiets the noise. Or the noise swallows the fight entirely, and the fight becomes a footnote in a scandal instead of a scandal being a footnote in a career. Any of those outcomes is possible, and none of them are neutral. Now listen close, sugar, because I want to give Claressa Shields her due on one specific point, and it is important. Claressa Shields is not a villain in the classical sense. Claressa Shields is a human being who fell for a story. Claressa Shields is a woman who probably genuinely believed, at some point in the private origin of this arrangement, that the story she was being told was true. Papoose is a persuasive man. Papoose has a career built on persuasion. Papoose knows how to author a version of himself that a woman wants to believe. And I have no doubt that in the quiet hours, in the private moments, Papoose has told Claressa Shields a version of this story that made all of it feel legitimate. The problem is that private stories do not survive contact with public paperwork, and paperwork does not lie. Papoose is still legally married, and every private story Claressa Shields was told is currently being dismantled by that single public fact. Sweetheart, that is the whole tragedy in one sentence. Private stories versus public paperwork. And public paperwork always wins. Public paperwork wins in court. Public paperwork wins in the culture. Public paperwork wins in the algorithm. And Claressa Shields is standing at the intersection of a very persuasive private story and a very cold public paperwork trail. And Claressa Shields is trying to convince the world that the private story overrides the paperwork. It does not. It never has. It never will. And the sooner Claressa Shields makes peace with that hierarchy, the sooner Claressa Shields can begin the actual repair of the reputation that is currently getting sanded down in high definition. So sis, drop your read in the comments. Tell me, do you think Papoose is playing Claressa Shields? Or is Claressa Shields playing Papoose? Do you think Remy Ma laughs at these posts, ignores these posts, or files these posts in a folder of her own? Do you think Claressa Shields walks away from this on her own? Or does it take another public embarrassment to end the arc? I am dying to see how the comment section splits, because there are at least 3 warring camps on this timeline, and I want to see which one you sit in. Do not just lurk. Speak up. Because we are all watching this story unfold in real time, and your read might be the read that changes somebody else's mind. And while you are down there, do me one favor, and I mean one real favor, because it takes you 2 seconds and it feeds this whole community. Smash that like button so this video actually reaches the timelines of everyone who needs to hear this breakdown. Tap the subscribe button so the next chapter of this saga lands in your feed the moment it drops. Because make no mistake, there is a next chapter, and it is coming faster than any of us are ready for. Hit that bell so the notification cuts through your inbox the second we are back with the next update. Because when this arc explodes next, and it will explode, you do not want to be the last person in the group chat catching up. You want to be the one dropping the receipts first. Until then, sugar, stay sharp, stay reading between the lines, and I will see you in the very next drop. Because trust me, the next drop is already loading, and it is going to make this one look like the warm-up round.